Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to this Unbreakable Self-Training session. In this session, I'm going to explain to you exactly how you can reprogram your mind, your subconscious mind, in order for you to get the best results you want in this life, on this planet, all the good things of life. So let's dive into it right now. All right, let's dive into what I call being unbreakable, developing an unbreakable mind. This is actually super important. This is simultaneously part of our Unbreakable Mind course, which you can find in the Academy exclusively. If you are interested in diving into the Academy course, click the link below. It's in the description. If you're already in the Academy, I'll kind of walk you through obviously what this is, what you're looking at right now, and then ultimately how to use this model to reprogram your mind. You see, I have been on a journey for, my goodness, since 2007. In fact, I remember reading, there was a personal development book that I picked up, and it was called Think and Grow Rich. And I thought, oh my goodness, like this is the thing, this is what I need to know. And all along the path, none of that stuff worked, which is kind of funny. But what I realized is that it didn't matter what the thing was at the end of the rainbow, right? What that point was. What matters is that I had a point at the end of the rainbow, and I used this model in order to be my best self, in order to develop my character, in order to develop my person, my greatest self, so that I could show up in the world as that thing. And once I became that thing, then all of a sudden things started coming to me, as if people started calling me out of nowhere. I got calls to be a coach for someone that I thought, oh my goodness, I had no idea that I could be that person's coach, because they were at a level that was different than me in wherever I was in my life at the time. But it wasn't until I started using this model that I finally took that step. And so that's why I want to bring this model to you. I was on a journey, and I looked for all the great teachers out there that were telling me all this same stuff. And I always wondered, what is the thing with the subconscious mind? And why is this so important? I heard guys like Bob Proctor and Lisa Nichols and some of the other people from the movie The Secret, whether you believe that or not. I looked into Joe Dispenza's work and tried to understand the subconscious mind from that perspective. But at the end of the day, there's three levels of mind, right? There's the brain stem, which is, if you want to call it the reptilian mind, which is the reason that we just go about our life. It's almost like we need to go eat, and we need to fornicate, and we need to rest, and we need to avoid pain. It's like those are the four things that we want to do from the reptilian mind, and sort of sometimes that can kind of get in the way, and that's oftentimes what we call our subconscious mind. Now on top of that is the mammalian mind, which is similar to that, but now we have a little bit higher levels of hierarchy, we have more emotional experiences, etc. And then the top level of that being the Homo sapien mind, this neocortex or prefrontal cortex, is the reason that we're able to have rational thought. It's the prefrontal cortex is the reason that you and I are even able to communicate in this direction, in this way. It's the reason things like a camera is developed, because somebody had the forethought, that prefrontal cortex, to create something out of nothing. And so that's the good thing. Now, again, these three levels of mind are all, they're not always in concert with each other, and they're not fighting each other, but there's this nuance that we have to be able to control the subconscious mind through the prefrontal cortex. And if we can do that consciously, now we're in control of our life. That's the beauty of this process. So the way we do this then is we understand what the mental model is, why we think, or what is a thought, how it creates an action, etc., etc., etc. And so if you understand this about yourself, then you can go into each one of those pieces and then take action in each one of those pieces, which I talk about in the reprogramming section of the Unbreakable Mind in the Academy. But once you go into each one of these pieces, then you can actually become more conscious about your thoughts, rather than just being like this reptile that's just fighting and running. So you know how to, again, think correctly, you know how to have focused thought, and then ultimately from there, you can get the best result you want in your life. You see, we're always fighting ourselves. We always want something, but sometimes we feel like we can't have it for whatever reason. And so the reason that happens is basically, at the end of the day, we're fighting our own reptilian mind. And so this is how we get in control of that, is to understand this. Now, without further ado, let's dive into each one of these components. This is, again, just the general framework, and then I'll dive into each one, exactly how to utilize them to your greatest advantage in different situations and etc. in the Academy course. So the first step is always that there is a situation. Now, a situation is literally just black and white. That's all it is. It's just ones or zeros. There's nothing really to it. You cannot control a situation. A situation could be that your business partner has neglected a piece of a contract. Let's just use that as an example. So your business partner neglected a piece of a contract, which ultimately could have brought in a lot more money for you, but this person no longer sees the contract as, applicable to you, and so that person is, going null and void on the contract. And now the situation is, my business partner no longer sees this contract as a document, right? Okay, so that's the situation. Let's just use that as an example. Now, what happens is we go on to the next step, if you want to call it that, which is you tell yourself a statement. Now, the statement in itself doesn't really matter that much. Again, situation is, my business partner has no longer sees our contract as valid, and so you tell yourself a statement. That statement could be a number of things. I can imagine what is going through your mind right now if your business partner no longer sees your contract with him as valid. And so you tell yourself a statement, and it could be a number of statements. Now, the statement doesn't really matter. It really, really doesn't matter. What matters is step number 3. This is the thing that matters. This is the bridge between step 2 and step 4, and this is really, really, really important. This is the point at which all of our life really happens. And what happens here is that we put meaning to the statement. Now again, we put meaning both to the statement and to the situation. So the situation is contract. The statement could have been, that guy, right? that guy, right? Maybe an expletive in there. And the meaning that you put to it is, that person is a crook, right? That's the meaning you put to it. And maybe there's another deeper meaning, which is, if he doesn't pay me, I'm going to run out of money, and if I run out of money, I no longer am a good provider, and if I'm no longer a good provider, now no one's going to love me, right? So there's depth in the meaning, right? So this is kind of on the superficial level. This is sort of like the game we're all playing, but the depth is in the meaning. And so again, we're going to dive into this in the actual course, but I need you to understand that it's the meaning you put to something that is all the matter. That is the thing that you are in control of. It's the meaning you put to something. And how to change the meaning you put to something is, again, totally dependent on the practices by going deep into those meanings. Again, this also has to do with how you were raised, the context you were raised in, what you experienced as a child, what you experienced from the world. It's as if, like, without a filter, you learned a lot of things when you were a kid, and you put certain meanings to things. Now, here's the interesting thing as well. You've always heard when people have a crisis in their life, maybe 6 years, maybe 7 years down the line after that crisis has occurred, oftentimes they will say, that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Now, when you're in crisis, you're also thinking, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. Now, what's the difference? Again, 7 years goes by, or it doesn't. It's all relative, however long it goes by. But why is it so bad in the beginning? It's the worst thing that ever happened to me. And then 6, 7 years later, or 10 years later, or even a year later, when you learn the lessons from it, you realize that is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Now, what's the biggest difference? Well, the biggest difference is that we see the situation, everything crumbling, and what's really going on is that we're diving deep. We're forced to dive deep into our own subconscious mind by using this cycle, by using this technology, and diving deep into our subconscious mind and actually reprogramming ourselves to be that person we actually wanted to be in the first place. That's the beauty of a crisis. That's the beauty of everything falling apart. That's the beauty of something happening in your life that you have no control over. And I think this is really important to note, because if you can at least stop for a second, admit that you are broken. Again, I had to do that. I had to admit that I was broken just as a man. I was depressed. I was anxious. I just had nowhere to go. I didn't know what to do. I had to seek out help. And when I did, I finally was able to now go into the depths of my own subconscious mind and identify the meaning I was putting to things. Because in the meaning, that's where we get the next step, which is the emotion of the situation, right? So the emotion comes from the meaning of what you tell yourself. Now, what is emotion? Emotion is literally just energy in motion. It's literally just biochemicals just moving around in your body. It's the way you, in fact, it's the way you experience your reality at the end of the day. That's the most fundamental way I can put it. Now, the emotional level really is the way we experience our life, period. If we didn't have emotion, if we didn't have the good and the bad emotional set, then what would happen is that we would just sort of go through life and nothing would really happen. Like, we would be emotionless. And so life wouldn't be quite as amazing as it otherwise could, because emotion is that thing that really allows us to experience the nuances, to go into the depths, to come back out, to feel the greatness from having failed numerous times in a row. And then all of a sudden you succeed in whatever endeavor you want. And it's just that much sweeter when you do succeed. And then you get to experience that success at a greater level, even years beyond whenever that success occurred. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the emotion. Again, the emotion is literally, it's funny because the emotion doesn't matter. A lot of times we think about the emotion as the emotional level. Now here's the deal. You are not your emotion. You're not. In fact, you're not even your situation, you're not your statement, and you're not even the meaning you put to something. But you get to command these things. And in fact, I would even say you don't get to command the situation. The situation just is what it is. But you get to command 2, 3, and 4 here. You get to command the statement you tell yourself, the meaning you put to it. And at the end of the day, you get to command the emotion. Now, going back to the example I mentioned, when someone says, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me, and then maybe 6 years down the line, after they've recouped and they've identified all the meaning and they now have a better perspective on life, which I'll explain how you get there again, is now they have a completely different emotional state. You see, I did that exact same thing happened to me. Okay, so my situation was a business partner of mine no longer saw our contract as being valid. My business basically fell apart because of this business partner. And I now had, this is 2015 in fact, I now had to go off into the world and try to figure my shit out. And I was completely lost. I was depressed. I had no idea where to go, what to do, what way was up, what way was down. I had no idea where to go. And so I had all this meaning underneath there though, that until I really stopped, until I really admitted, oh man, I'm broken, until I did that, I wasn't even able to come close to getting into the depths of the meaning. And that's the biggest point, right? And that's why anytime I work with somebody, I'm always like, hey, listen, you got to admit that you're broken. It doesn't matter with what. Like, I'm not talking like this is some substance abuse like intervention here. I'm talking like, are you broken in your relationships? Are you broken in your finances? Are you broken in your career? Are you broken in your spirit? Wherever you're broken, until you admit to that brokenness, can you then become unbreakable? That's the whole point of being unbreakable. You have to admit to your brokenness before you can move forward, because pride will get in the way. And if you have too much pride, then you can't step across the bridge towards courage. And the way to step across the bridge is with vulnerability. Okay. That's for another lesson. That's a whole nother animal. All right, so now we're on emotion. Again, emotion is just the way we experience the world. Are you having good emotion? Are you having bad emotion? 7 years ago, 6 years ago, you might think, oh man, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. Or the statement is like, that effing guy, the meaning that you put to it is, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. What kind of emotions are you going to experience? Despair, helplessness, hopelessness, rage, anger, all those things. But what if you said, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. This is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I'm a little bit scared, but this is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Well, all of a sudden you still feel through the crisis, you still feel the emotions of gratitude. You still feel the emotions of joy. You still feel the emotions of optimism. You still feel the emotions of helpfulness, right? That somebody out there can be helpful to you. And so that is a huge, huge understanding. That if you know that it's the thing you tell yourself and the meaning you put to it that can give you that emotion, and you can change that in a second. You can change that just like that. And if you know that, then now all of a sudden you have the control. And in fact, you had the control the whole time. You don't have control here. This is not in your control. You have zero control. This is just facts. Just the facts, ma'am. But you have control in this. Now, if you know that you have control, and this is really where you have control, now you can do the work to dive into it. And again, that's what we do in the academy. If you want to jump into the academy, then dive in. Go into the academy and you'll understand how to dive into each one of those things. And really, at the end of the day, we understand how these two things, because this, at the end of the day, is really what we tell ourselves and the meaning we put to it. So if you really want to dive, if you want to get super specific, go to the meaning. Just go to the meaning. That's it. Okay. Now, this is where you have control. Step number 5, after we experience the emotion of the situation, typically, and because of this is, again, this is our subconscious mind, our reptilian brain, that which we don't have control of. Perfect. Okay. I just want to make sure we're still tracking here. We react. So, after we react, what we're going to do then is we are going to get a result, which is number 6. So again, this is where we have control. Now you're probably thinking, yeah, but I can control my action. Yes and no. Again, when we're talking about the subconscious mind, you have to understand that the subconscious mind is the thing that's going to try to react. And so the statement, the meaning you give it to yourself, this is where you have the most control. The emotion is really just the basis of these two things. The emotion shows up. It creates this mechanism in your brain to give you an action this way. All right, like I'm hungry. All right, go to the pantry, get some food. Go open their fridge. Do you ever notice that like you'll open the fridge at random times of the day and you're like, what am I doing here? Not even hungry. Again, it's like as if there's this neurological cocktail, this biochemical cocktail called emotion that is your cue, and that is what this is. So this is a cue, right? So now we have a cue to react, and then after we react, we get a result. Again, action is the thing that has to work. You've probably heard this in the book Think and Grow Rich. I was talking about this before. I now understand how this works. You see, I always thought, well, I have to take action, of course. But the thing we have control of is the thinking part of it. Because what I really don't have control of is actually the action. We all know we need to work out. We all know we need to file our taxes on time. We all know we need to call our loved one and just tell them that we appreciate you. But why don't we do it oftentimes? It's because we're living in these statements and this meaning. Oftentimes a statement we'll tell ourselves even without a situation, or we'll just look at just the general situation that we'll look at, and we'll tell ourselves, man, like I can't get anything right. And what happens then? Now I can get anything right. What's the meaning to that? Typically it's like I'm unlovable. What's the emotion of that? Pretty poor. And what are you going to do? You're going to react in a way that makes you unlovable. And then you're going to get a result which then feeds the situation. That's literally it. So you're going to get a result because you're going to act in a way that is you're now unlovable, and then you're going to create evidence for the thought and the meaning you put in. You're like, yeah, told you it's true. Told you. And all of a sudden, you're just going to keep cycling. Now, where do you stop the cycle? And this is the biggest thing. And again, I dive into this in the academy. And I want you to know that you have control of this. You absolutely have control of the situation you have in your life. Because we all see this. We all see this, but what we're looking for is that we're looking for this to cause this. And then we think that, oh, I need to take a better action. Like, I need to be more productive. Or, man, I need to get up early. Or, man, I need to act in a better way. Again, this is action. That's it. And we think, oh, my action is going to get this situation. I'm going to get this result, which then creates more of a situation. We're like, man, I know I need to do it. But what no one is talking about is this stuff over here. And actually people are talking about, but they're not actually putting into context for people where they know, okay, this causes this, it's like, and this is a cycle. Now think about any area of your life and you'll realize, holy shit, that's true. Any area of your life. Could be your relationships, could be your health, could be your finances. And again, the statement you tell yourself, I had a client of mine that they were about 50 pounds overweight. And we worked through it, and I'm like, listen, we got to go into the mind. And she's like, no, I just need to know. Tell me what to eat. What's my action? Tell me how to work out. What's my action? I was like, no. We need to talk about what are you telling yourself? Because like you know what to eat, you know what the action, but we also have to identify what is the emotional state that you're in, and what's the meaning you're putting to yourself with the statement of, I'm not safe. Now, again, this woman was molested as a child. And so she didn't feel safe in being fit and being active and being vibrant, because if she was fit, active, and vibrant, then that trauma could come to her again. And so she created this situation of her being 50 pounds overweight, of being out of shape. And so if she was 50 pounds overweight, out of shape, she was less attractive. And if she was less attractive, then that hurt couldn't come to her again. And that happens. That truly happens oftentimes. You see, I thought in my own success, if I was successful, that I could be hurt, that I was out there now, that I could be harmed. And I had to go into that. I had to go into that meaning, that statement, that situation, that the meaning I put to it, and I had to start pulling it out, and I had to start seeing it and processing it. And the way I process is through what I talk about in the academy. But the key that I want you to get is that your primary focus is truly going to be the statement and the meaning you put to it. Really, at the end of the day, where everything happens is in the meaning you put to it, because you can go layers and layers and layers, like the movie Inception, and you can get down there and you can identify, oh, that's the meaning I put to it. And then there's practices to truly release that and change that and know that you're changing it, because you physically feel different. You'll have an emotional change in a matter of a second. It's pretty phenomenal. But the more you do that, again, this is a practice. It's not like you're going to just do it once and then all of a sudden, oh, I'm good. The more you do that, the more you're going to realize, yeah, that's it. That's true. That is true. Now I'm changing. So if you go into the depths, and here's the cool thing. So in the Unbreakable Mind course, I talk about this as a specific, right? And we go into the nuances of each one of these. But in the Unbreakable Spirit course, we actually guide you through your story, your journey, your life lessons by using this same mechanism so that you know how to apply it to your own life. And that's super important. So again, statement, meaning, emotion, you're going to feel that emotion. We don't want to feel bad emotion. Bad emotion is a good thing. And now this is important. Bad emotion is a good thing because it gives us the cue to react in a certain way. If we have poor emotion like despair, oftentimes we need to take action. We need to move forward. And so then what happens is now we're reacting. We're going to get a better result. And then we're going to get a better situation. So again, if we can change the statement and the meaning, then we're going to feel better. Then we're going to take a better action. Then we're going to get a better result. Then we're going to get a better situation in our life. We get a better situation in our life. Now we're like, oh yeah, all that good thinking stuff, right? It's not just positive thought. It's really not. You have to dive deep into your subconscious, and this is how you do it, okay? So that is step number one. Now, in the course, if you're actually already in the course, just dive into the next module and you'll be able to understand how to take this information and apply it to your life. And I'll give you some practices that are super simple, super straightforward. If you wanted to dive into the Unbreakable Spirit course from here, of course, again, that's in the Academy. If you're not a part of the Academy, then check out the link below. But If you want to dive into the Unbreakable Spirit course, we're going to use this for the initial phase in that so that you can walk through your story, your journey, understanding who you are on this planet, and ultimately become your unbreakable self. Beautiful. This is super important. Thank you for watching. If you like this information, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share this information. Man, I want everybody to know this. I feel like everybody should know this information. This is just something that they don't teach in the school of life. And that's why I'm teaching you today. All right, guys. Hey, stay unbreakable, and I'll see you in the next lesson.